Japan joins Philippines, US to counter Chinese military in South China Sea. Before we dive in details, please subscribe to the channel and stay always one step ahead to know all global important events happening around you. Give a thumbs up and share the video with your family and friends. Let's move on with the video. Have you ever wondered why the South China Sea is a focal point of global tension? This body of water is more than just an expanse of blue on the map. It serves as a critical commercial gateway, with about a third of the world's maritime trade passing through its waters. Each year, trillions of dollars of goods sail across its surface, from oil and gas to textiles and electronics. But it's not just about trade. The South China Sea is also home to potentially vast reserves of natural resources. Beneath its waves are believed to lie substantial oil and gas deposits, untapped and tantalizing. It also boasts some of the richest fisheries in the world, providing livelihoods for millions and food for billions. Yet the South China Sea is not a tranquil paradise. It's a geopolitical hotbed, simmering with tension and territorial disputes. Several nations, including China, Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei, lay claim to parts of it. But it's China's assertive claims that have been particularly contentious. China lays claim to a large swath of the sea, demarcated by its infamous 9-dash line. This claim not only overlaps with those of several other countries, but also flouts international law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's a bold assertion of sovereignty, one that has drawn criticism and concern from nations worldwide. But this isn't just about territorial disputes. In the grand scheme of global power dynamics, the South China Sea is a stage where a larger drama unfolds. It's a chessboard where nations maneuver and strategize, their moves echoing far beyond these waters. As we delve deeper, we uncover a high-stakes game of power and dominance, with the South China Sea as the chessboard. The pieces are set, the players are ready, and the world watches with bated breath as the game unfolds. The roots of the conflict trace back to China's expansive claims over the South China Sea. Quite audacious, you might say. This vast maritime expanse, rich in resources and teeming with potential, has been subject to China's assertive sovereignty claims, rooted in its historical narrative. The infamous 9-dash line is a prime example. It's an ambiguous demarcation, sketched by China on the map of the South China Sea, claiming almost 90% of the waterway. Now let's bring into focus China's controversial island-building activities. Imagine this. You're in the middle of the ocean and suddenly, out of nowhere, an island appears, equipped with airstrips, harbors, and military installations. That's exactly what China's been up to. It has transformed tiny reefs and atolls into full-fledged islands, creating de facto military bases. Unsurprisingly, this has raised more than a few eyebrows in the international community. The waters of the South China Sea are not only rich in resources, but also crisscrossed by some of the world's busiest shipping lanes. The freedom of navigation and overflight are principles that nations hold dear, and China's actions have been perceived as a direct threat to these principles. Now, what about the neighbors? Well, they're not too thrilled. Several nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan, have overlapping territorial claims in the South China Sea. They've voiced their concerns loud and clear, pushing back against China's assertive posturing. Some have even taken their disputes to international courts, further escalating the tensions. These bold moves have set the stage for an intense geopolitical conflict. The South China Sea has transformed into a chessboard of power politics, with nations maneuvering to protect their interests. So, what happens next? Well, that's a story for another scene. Until then, keep an eye on this maritime flashpoint. It's a geopolitical hotbed that's getting hotter by the day. Unsettled by China's assertiveness, nations have rallied to counterbalance its influence. In the face of China's bold claims in the South China Sea, countries like the Philippines, the United States, and Japan have been forging alliances and partnerships. These nations are not just standing by, they're actively increasing their military spending and boosting their naval presence in the region. Take a look at Britain, for instance. The HMS Queen Elizabeth, a new British aircraft carrier, embarked on its maiden voyage, crossing the South China Sea to send a clear message to China. The sea lanes must remain open. The voyage was part of the UK's effort to maintain a global role post-Brexit. The carrier exercised with naval vessels from the United States, Singapore, Japan, and South Korea along the route, demonstrating a unified front against any potential threats. Then there's India. In response to China's growing fleet of warships, India commissioned its first home-built aircraft carrier, the INS Vikrant. This warship is the largest built in India, capable of carrying a crew of 1,600 and operating a fleet of 30 fighter aircraft. The INS Vikrant will be fully operational by the end of 2023, further bolstering India's naval capabilities. This international pushback isn't limited to military spending and naval activity. It's also about alliance building. Countries are coming together, uniting their resources and strategies to ensure a balance of power in the region. It's not about aggression, but about maintaining peace and stability in a region that's vital to global trade and security. The consequences of these alliances and partnerships are clear. There's been a significant increase in military presence in the South China Sea, with Navy ships from various countries patrolling the waters and aircraft carriers stationed at strategic points. This has undoubtedly escalated tensions in the region. But it's also a testament to the resolve of these nations to protect their interests and uphold international law. This, in turn, has led to a significant military presence in the South China Sea, further escalating tensions. As the stakes continue to rise, recent developments have added a new layer to the conflict. The South China Sea, already a maelstrom of geopolitical currents, is now witnessing a significant ramp-up in military capabilities. Take, for instance, the maiden voyage of the HMS Queen Elizabeth, a new British aircraft carrier. This voyage is not just a demonstration of Britain's readiness to defend Western interests, but also an assertion of its presence in the Indo-Pacific region. A clear signal to China that sea lanes must remain open. This move is part of Britain's global role post-Brexit and reflects a significant increase in military spending. The carrier is also participating in NATO exercises, highlighting the interconnectedness of these global military interests. Meanwhile, India has commissioned its first home-built aircraft carrier, the INS Vikrant. This is a clear bid to counter China's growing fleet of warships and enhance its indigenous shipbuilding capabilities. The INS Vikrant is the largest warship built in India, capable of carrying a crew of 1,600 and operating a fleet of 30 fighter aircraft. This move is a response to China's expanding presence in the Indian Ocean and a demonstration of India's commitment to strengthening its naval capabilities. However, China is not standing still. The People's Liberation Army Navy currently has 355 ships and is expected to grow to 420 ships by 2025 and 460 ships by 2030. China recently launched its third aircraft carrier, equipped with an electromagnetic aircraft launch system, further escalating the tense situation. These escalating military developments highlight a complex web of interests and the potential for a volatile escalation. As nations continue to assert their presence and protect their interests, the South China Sea has become a powder keg, a flashpoint where the world's major powers converge. These developments underscore the volatile state of affairs in the South China Sea. The South China Sea conflict is a complex issue with far-reaching implications. It is a strategic chessboard, where global powers are making calculated moves. China's assertive claims have stirred the waters, causing ripples that have reached far beyond its shores. In response, alliances have been formed, with nations like Japan, the Philippines, and the United States banding together to counterbalance China's growing influence. Recent developments have added fresh layers to this intricate saga. Britain's new aircraft carrier, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, has embarked on its maiden voyage to assert its presence in the region. Meanwhile, India has launched its first home-built aircraft carrier, the INS Vikrant, signaling its commitment to enhancing its naval capabilities. Amid these ripples, the South China Sea has become a barometer of shifting geopolitical winds. As we navigate through these turbulent waters, it's critical to keep an eye on this pivotal region. In the intricate dance of power and diplomacy, the South China Sea remains a critical arena. And as we watch the situation unfold, one thing is clear. The South China Sea is more than just a body of water. It's a symbol of geopolitical struggle in the 21st century.